greatest team in the history of League of Legends, taken down by the greatest team Europe has ever produced.
So let's take a look at this. So he says they fall short on drafts. Okay, so why do we fall short on drafts? Let's go to the very end of this draft phase, right? Okay, so this is the draft phase where they open with B1 LeBlanc, and then the opponent responds with R1, R2, Aziraphilios. Okay, so already you're right. You do fall short on drafts because you unironically drafted LeBlanc. Okay, and you're also banning Kai'Sa on blue side. You should actually be embarrassed. Actually, you should be more than embarrassed. You should be completely. You should like. Never mind. I'll reserve my speech. So you open with B1 LeBlanc. So you're perma-griefing. LeBlanc is the biggest fake news bullshit champion in the entire world. If you cannot flex this champion to top lane, okay, and also play at mid, and you're not willing to also play AP LeBlanc when the situation calls for it, one, LeBlanc shouldn't even get picked in the first place. Two, if you're not willing to flex it and do those things that I just mentioned, then you shouldn't even want to pick LeBlanc, regardless of whether or not LeBlanc should be picked as a champion or not. Okay, so already we're behind on the opening, because what does LeBlanc actually do? Okay, I've watched, 300-something hours of competitive League of Legends in the last 8 weeks, or something like that, or like 7 weeks. 7 weeks or something. I've watched 300 competitive hours of, League across various regions. And now, obviously, just watching the games does not necessarily tell you whether or not something is accurate, right? Because of the introduction of new information, or, you can't just rely on the results of the outcomes to make conclusions and stuff like that. But if you actually watch LeBlanc in a lot of these games, and you ask yourself the question of what she can or can't do in a lot of the games, you'll realize that LeBlanc is either getting even, or she's going even, or she's getting neutralized in lane a lot of the time. And then, typically what ends up happening is, depending on the capture of the first Drake speed, typically second, third, fourth dragon, LeBlanc is sitting on first item, which is Static Shiv. Then she's sitting on Alternator, and then usually Merc Treads, Ionian, or Sork Pen Boots, right? Any of those variations. She has no ability haste. She has no AP ratios. And because of this, she is infinitely less mobile at those dragons than an AP LeBlanc would be. And her basic poke all comes down to her ability to weave in static shivs, and she's just not providing a lot of value. So what ends up happening is that a lot of teams actually have better early game Drake pressure than LeBlanc. Now, a lot of people on Twitter, especially, made me want to, take a gun to my head and pull the trigger because of the claims that they make that LeBlanc applies side lane pressure. Okay. So I would then implore you to go through 1,000 hours of competitive League of Legends for the last year or 8 months, and find instances where a split push or side lane champion actually is threatening side lane. And I'll just save you a lot of time. The only time where side lanes have ever really been threatened in a competitive game before Elder is going to spawn or something, because that's the whole nature of the Drake. And actually, that's one of the reasons where side laning is considered dead in some ways, is because basically, you can't legitimately threaten anything on side. One, League of Legends macro play has evolved since legitimate split pushing was a thing from way back in the day. Turret changes, minion movement speed, champion durability, and all this other type of stuff. Typically, even if you're a split push champion like Fiora or Jax or Tryndamere or these types of champions, you generally need about 4 or 5 items. Reality check, you don't get 4 or 5 items until 30 plus minutes into the game. Other reality check is that Elder Dragon is typically spawning, before 30 minutes in a lot of cases, and if not, then it's spawning around 30 minutes, and even 4 items alone really does depend on the matchup for the opponent to be able to hold the turret. So in the case about LeBlanc and stuff for splitting or all this other stuff, the only legitimate split pusher that we've had in recent time, genuine recent times, has been Tristana when there was the Bloodthirster with Overheal. But even Tristana didn't hit that point until 4 items, and when she did hit that point, she was unique in that she was a ranged champion who could actually walk up with the minion wave, hit the enemy before they could hit her. She has the W, she has the R, and then also she nukes turrets very, very, very quickly. Not to say that some of the other split push champions don't do that. LeBlanc is not doing any of these things. Just because LeBlanc goes to a side lane and she instantly shoves the wave, so do a lot of other split push champions. I don't know if you guys realize that or not. And then the argument that, she can't be collapsed on because she has distortion, then she has mimic distortion. Tryndamere can't really be collapsed on. Same with Fiora. Like, these champions are also extremely mobile champions, and in a pro play setting where you're on comms with your other 4 teammates, it's really, really, really hard to mess up your split push enough to actually get collapsed on and die, and you do not need the mobility of a LeBlanc. Now, also, the really funny thing about the mobility of the LeBlanc is that even if she just has one Night Harvester, etc., one of the things that you might notice about LeBlanc, even in the mid to late game transition phase, is that she actually is not accumulating a whole lot of farm. So when she's not accumulating a whole lot of farm, you just have Night Harvester for ability haste. So if you have Leandries and Ionian Boots, which are, some of the other variations of LeBlanc and stuff, and you're actually running the Airy, or you're running Comet, or like any of these types of trees, etc., then you also get access to Transcendence, and these types of things. Then your ability haste is also like there. So these conversations don't really make sense, and so I just want to put a bullet in those conversations really quickly. As soon as someone raises these things as like as a means to advocate for why like LeBlanc side laning is good, you can just tell that 1, they don't watch League of Legends, 2, they don't understand League of Legends, 3, they actually don't understand at what game timer these types of things genuinely become threatening, and then 4, they don't understand champion's ability to resist these aforementioned things. And then you can even go with 5, which is just a further extension of what I've already been saying, and that LeBlanc is also not even a very good champion. But again, a lot of champions have obscene amounts of wave clear. Okay, so B1 LeBlanc. I feel like we just put a bullet through its head. Honestly, I'd probably put a second and third bullet through it too once I saw that she was on the ground. Just to make sure, really, for good measure. This champion is so fake news. So you open B1 LeBlanc, opponent responds R1, R2, Aphelios, and Azir. So already you should be thinking that you're probably just going to go AP LeBlanc. I mean, that's just what you have to do. You can't actually continue to go AD LeBlanc, I think, at this point. Now, when you see Azir and Aphelios, they are the same theme. They're weak to the same theme. They are both vulnerable to the identical theme. When Azir and Aphelios are outranged, they are extremely, extremely unhappy. When the opponents have ability to control a lot of surface area, or like terrain, or, they dissuade any attempt that Azir or Aphelios might have for like engage and stuff, Azir and Aphelios are very, very unhappy. Okay. So Brion draft 2 champions that are vulnerable to an identical theme. Now you have LeBlanc who can still go AP. Now there is enough committal on Bro's end to where I do think it's enough of a blunder. So I think at this point, if T1 just acknowledged that these 2 champions are both weak to the same theme, you pivot into that immediately. So realistically, you could already just choose Jinx Thresh. If you're willing to just take Jinx Thresh blind, which it is here, because the argument would be that if you B2, B3 Jinx Thresh, you're getting the same exact situation, and that Rakan would, you're handing over counterpick support to the opponents, right? So if you're willing to do that, then you're just willing to do that. There's no reason to then pick your top laner and your jungler and give over double counterpick again, and then the opponent also retains counterpick support. There's just no drafting happening here for T1. It's completely brain dead. Now, obviously, in this instance, Brion did end up with a better draft. Now, I did end up saying on Twitter that Jinx was basically the only way out, and she was. If you actually watched the game, the team fights actually transpired pretty similarly to the way that we described it during the co-stream of it, as well as like the breakdowns that I was trying to do on Twitter and stuff like that. But then Gumayushi did also end up griefing his build at some points, and that ended up happening. Okay, so that was game 2. Or that was game 1, sorry. Then we move into game 2 draft. And let's take a look at game 2 draft. Okay. So this is going to be game 2 draft. All right. So in game 2, we open B1. We open with B1 LeBlanc again, even though Kai'Sa is open. So now one of the things that you may have noticed is they trade the Kai'Sa ban for an Azir ban, but they still don't B1 Kai'Sa. Okay. So now what's even more peculiar is that either 1, you're willing to now play against Kai'Sa, which also says that you're fucking crazy, okay? There's actually something wrong with you if you're willing to play against Kai'Sa, because no teams in the world have shown the ability to deduce that Kai'Sa is only weak to one thing. Kai'Sa is the strongest champion in the game at 25 minutes. When Kai'Sa has 3 items, there is no single champion in League of Legends that is stronger than Kai'Sa. She is actually reality warping in terms of strength. 3,000 range that is just nuking your health bar. It doesn't make any sense, and if she goes Ludens or Leandries, depending on the game, there's no no counterplay to it. There's nothing that you can do. 3,000 range is so ridiculous. So for reference, Varus is 1,575 range on his arrow, and Jace is 1,650, okay? Kai'Sa is almost double Jace's QE range. Okay, great. So T1 are willing to give away Kai'Sa now. Apparently, Kai'Sa is actually less problematic than Azir. Cope. Brion end up responding with R1, R2, Aphelios, and Maokai. Okay, 2 champions that, again, love being engaged on. What is T1 going to do? We're going to draft Vi. Great. I'm glad that we drank some, you know. I'm glad that we you know, maybe lick some paint thinner or something before the game. I'm not really quite sure what we're doing here. So we're picking Vi, and we're now trying to hard engage into Aphelios and Maokai. And then you also take Kai'Sa. Okay, now the logic might be that Kai'Sa can follow up on Vi, but Kai'Sa following up on Vi, you're technically entertaining one of Kai'Sa's worst aspects of her, right? You're asking her to either forcefully go Guinsoo's, or she's gonna go Luden, but then when she goes Luden, why do you have Vi? Because generally when you go Luden or Liandry on Kai'Sa, then you're gonna want your jungler to just be a body blocker. But now you also have this LeBlanc that is probably gonna go Night Troller and just be the static Shiv LeBlanc, etc. And now the theme of the team composition is just weird. Kai'Sa hates her teammates. Enemy responds with R3 Jace. Okay, so the Jace, no theme champion, at least at this point inside of the draft. It's probably just there as a neutralizer against the LeBlanc, and then also to be able to be flexed mid and top lane. Bans end up coming through again. Big Brown Croc ends up getting picked up, and then the opponents respond with T1 being the opponents. B4, B5, Rel, and Ornn. So now again, we do have a wombo combo-y hard engage type comp. Now, in this game, realistically, there is now no response to Kai'Sa poke. Okay, I think everyone in the world can agree with that. That Rel and Ornn, because of the blunder of the Renekton and then the Alistar, there's actually not a reliable way for Bro to engage onto T1. Now, I understand that Vi wants to engage, and that obviously, like, you pick LeBlanc to wave clear and poke and do all this other stuff. It doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't matter what any of T1's other champions wanted to do at this point. Brion's champions have now fallen susceptible to one aspect that T1's comp possesses, okay? And if you guys were not here earlier on in the stream when I was doing the Planeswalker card analogy and stuff like that, and I was talking about, different abilities and stuff despite being the same character and all this other stuff and yada, 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 okay? Let's use Jace the Mind Sculptor, okay? Okay, return target creature card to its owner's hand, okay? Draw 3 cards, put 2 on top of your hand, or, whatever. Look at the top card of target player's library, etc. Okay, you could choose any option that you want. You could, right? Maybe you put this in the deck because you wanted the option to be creature removal. Now, even if you don't play Magic the Gathering or something like that, you can understand if you've played Hearthstone, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, or anything like that, okay? And if you haven't played any of that, then, I mean, you're kind of shit out of luck, but I already used the Magic, I already used Kane example, etc. Maybe you put this card in your deck because you wanted it to be creature removal. But as soon as the opponents draft so poorly, you're not going to use this mode of this card anymore. You're going to use another mode. Because the other mode of the card does not have any interaction by the opponent. Okay? There's no way for Brion to interact with Kai'Sa. They have drafted in such a way that they failed a failure. Okay? They somehow went below 0. You know how some kids in high school and university and stuff, they could do extra credit, they could go above 100 and stuff. Brion have managed to go below 0. Okay, they're the only kids in the world that have now ended up with a negative GPA. All right, so there's no way to interact with Kai'Sa. That's great. So now when T1 acknowledges this, they should just mold everything around making sure that Kai'Sa has that aspect of her kit. Okay, she should just go Ludens. Not Liandry's in this instance. You don't want to turn Kai'Sa into Xerath in this particular game because she doesn't have enough assistance to be transformed into Xerath by going Liandry's. So you're going to go Ludens. And you're obviously going to go Ludens because your Q and your passive do still have value because obviously Bro will be attempting to engage onto you. Now, Vi typically wants to use her R to engage. In this instance, she's not going to do that anymore if you're playing what you should do, not what you want to do. Because all that you should do if you want to have the least variance possible and then try to play towards your best win con is to have Kai'Sa just endlessly spam Ws, because again, no interaction by the opponents. So in that instance, Vi goes from being an engager to now being a peeler with her R. That's it. That's all that Vi has to do now. So in this instance, she can still go a supportive build, right? She can go like Black Cleaver, Radiant, Redemption or something. Or she could just go like Radiant, Redemption, Knight's Vow or something like that and put it on Kai'Sa or something like that. Probably not that, probably just going to be the first one, etc. And then obviously Ornn and Rel are also going to be defensive tools because there's no interaction. Now, the thing is T1 clearly does not realize this, because in this game, not only do they try to bring the fight to the opponents, Kai'Sa also ends up going Guinsoo's. Now, this is why I talk about itemization and runes all the time, even though people complain. I feel like, people complain because they're feeble-minded. Runes and items are the most pure form of insight into a person's psyche. I just have to make like a dedicated video on this or something, okay? Either there's two sides to the coin, okay? Or technically there could even be a third one, and I'll say what the third one is after this. There's two sides to this. Either Gumayusi is not actively thinking about his build, in which case he is building Guinsoo's on autopilot. Okay, that's one side. Or the second side of the coin is he is thinking about his build, and he is building Guinsoo's because of a failure to assess all of the variables properly, okay? No matter how you look at it, it's bad. Either you're on autopilot and you're not consciously thinking about the choices that you make, or two, he is thinking about it, but he's reaching a poor conclusion because he's forming everything like improperly, right? He's not assessing that the opponents don't have interaction against Kai'Sa W. He's not assessing, the fact that his teammates should just become body blockers and stuff like that, and that the enemy team is extremely weak to this aspect of Kai'Sa, and that's the way that he should shift it, okay? The third side of it is even worse, which is just copying another player, right? Now, that's not quite the same as you're actually thinking about why you're doing it, right? I guess it could kind of fall into that train of thought, like if Gumayusi saw Ruler do this, then he just does it because Ruler did it. Something along those lines would be like the third side, but typically it's those two things. And that's why I think that runes and items are actually really important, because you get one of those two sides of the coin. Either the person is consciously thinking about what they're doing and they reached a wrong conclusion, which is really good because in theory that is something that is very tangible, right? Inside of like coaching and feedback, VOD reviews, etc. Or they're not consciously thinking about what they're doing, in which case that's also really good because that is something tangible that you can engage with and you can coach and you can do all this other stuff. So it doesn't matter. And people that don't understand the importance of items and runes and stuff, and they just think it's really surface level. It's not that deep. It's not going to affect a game. It is going to affect a game. Or it is going to affect a game. Well, games, plural, right? Because what it's ultimately saying is that the way that they view and process information and the way that they analytically break it down is not sound. So even if it's not affecting the outcome of a game, it still is affecting their games because it's going to affect all of their games in the future for years to come. Now, I was having a conversation with Griffin. It wasn't too long ago, and that League is not really evolving, or it's not actually getting better. It's not improving, which is why we've seen a lot of stagnation, and it's also why we've started seeing a lot of the same mistakes happen. It's why, you can have Herald math literally be shown that rotating for a Herald is actually less math and less EXP, to contest it. And so, but the AD carry moves anyway and all this other type of stuff. How is it that for, 3, 4, 5 years of, co-streams, live views, VOD reviews, etc., that pro players still making these same mathematical mistakes? They're still making these kind of errors, that is very bizarre because they can be shown. How is it that when players hop teams and stuff like that, they start, sometimes they'll have interviews where they say that they have to relearn everything again, or they have to learn how to fit in with one another, or they have to learn how to play with one another and all this other type of stuff. How is that possible that something like that's happening when it should be that they understand it on a really fundamental level? Well, the explanation, or the only logic that I have for this, is that they're not actually improving. They're actually just making gains the same way that someone would at a gym. So, for instance, when teams go to MSI and they go to Worlds and they're thrown into really competitive environments, if I pick up guy in chat, okay, just a really, like he can be a totally normal guy, or he can be a really out of shape guy, or he could be even a guy that is in shape. I pick up guy in chat and I put him in a helicopter and I fly him to an island. And on that island is a bunch of other guys in chat, okay? Now, in this analogy, it's obviously just pro teams, right? Pro players, etc. You throw that person into a gym, okay? And in that gym, they're boot camping, right? They're working on, everything that's going on inside of the gym. They're doing all these workouts, they're doing all these muscle exercises, they're eating and doing all this other stuff. Naturally, they're making gains, right? Their body is transforming, okay? And because they're doing the same exact patterns over and over and over and over, and it's the same patterns happening over and over and over and over, they start realizing, probably on a subconscious or like an unconscious level, that certain things are bad, which is why I think over the progression of international tournaments, you start to see play not only start to get closer and closer to like one identified meta, which is, what ends up happening in that like gymnasium or that fictional gymnasium, but also you start seeing some patterns begin to develop that seem a little bit more thought out. And this is something that does happen. But now you remove them from the gymnasium. You pick up the guy in chat again after 1 month, and you pick him up and you fly him back to where he was before. Now, he didn't actually learn what is going on with the exercises, what is causing, certain muscle groups to be worked out and what's causing them to, grow. He's not understanding the way that the macros are and, how it affects like certain parts of his body and all this other type of stuff. He's not understanding, like his heart rate, and like fat burning zone and all these other types of things on a really, really fundamental level. But he didn't need to get as good as he got, right? He was still like an Olympian while he was in the boot camp zone. His body was looking fantastic, etc. But he doesn't actually understand anything that's going on in that environment. He goes back to his old environment and he loses the routine that they had going on every day. Slowly over time, his body regresses to its previous state. Right? Now, it's not to say that he can't be thrown into that environment again and do the same exact thing, but that's ultimately what League is doing with its off seasons and team cycling and coaching staff changes and all this other stuff over the years, right? Players are ultimately just endlessly making gains. Now, there is improvement. It's like really microscopic improvement over the years, right? There are like small things that start getting improved upon, right? Year after year after year. I'm not denying that. But for the most part, it's pretty stagnant, right? It is very, very stagnant. You see repetitive mistakes. You see endless cycles keep happening, etc. So rather than saying that players are improving, I would more liken it to just saying that they're making gains. Anyways, that was a little bit of a tangent. It wasn't totally related to the T1 thing, but I think that it's interesting to talk about in the first place anyway, because I think it really does explain a lot of the reasons why, one, you see certain players demonstrate year after year after year an ability to continuously be ahead of other players strategically, or their ability to refine their own play, right? I think that is something that is also very noticeable. And then you see players year after year after year that just heavily rely on mechanics, but there's nothing else really going on with them, and then they just endlessly loop the same champions, they loop the same metas, etc. And looping the same metas and looping the same champions is also a byproduct of the stagnation, and you can point towards like pro players' match histories, their top sevens and stuff like that, and I think that's a lot of for the frustration that some people have had with pro teams and stuff. Okay, so we move on. Let's go into the T1 game. All right, so that was the little talk about Guinsus versus Ludens. And why itemization and rune choice is not something to be disregarded. And I wish that I had a more apt analogy, like maybe a medical analogy that could say why it's not something. It doesn't matter how minor it is, because it is a symptom of a much deeper problem. It's not going to affect you right now. And like, even if he has Guinsus or he has Ludens in this game, what multiverse, or like what percentage of scenarios does he win with Ludens and Guinsus and all this other stuff? It's not about that. It's about the fundamental underlying thought process and how he arrives at the conclusion. Okay, so that was game 2. And so game 2, they end up beating Bro. Now in game 2, Kaisa is like the saving grace in that game. Now in this game, they have a Thanos draft. This game is unlosable. You cannot lose this game. You have Gangplank barrels. You have Gangplank ultimate. You have Blitzcrank with multiple hook targets. You have Kai'Sa and Jace on the same exact team. You can turn Kai'Sa into Xerath this game with Liandry's. I think that would be perfectly reasonable, but I think that like going Ludens in this game is also fine. But I would probably make a conclusion on either or if I like spent a lot more time like thinking about it. But I think like for the most part, either of them is fine. Now, this is a pretty Thanos draft. T1 historically has had difficulty playing really control-oriented games. Now, we're not going to do explicitly like a VOD review of this game, but obviously there's a lot of catastrophic errors that happen very early on in this game. This is the type of game for T1 where if they're down 3,000 gold at 20 minutes, they're ahead in the game because there's no interaction when Gangplank is level 13, he has his barrels, he has his R up, Jace is QEing from, 1,700 range away, 1,650 range away, Kai'Sa's Wing endlessly from 3,000 range away. There's no ability for this team composition to interact with that, to bypass the Gangplank barrels, the Maokai saplings, the Maokai R, right? The Gangplank R. Bro has to eat all of the damage just to reach the archers, right? Because that's ultimately what they are. Jace and Kai'Sa are archers, and Brionne has no catapult. They have no way to get on top of the archers in this type of a game. Now, if you guys remember, Zeus just dies for fun level 1, okay? So Zeus dies for fun level 1 at Tribrush, all right? So the very, very start of the game, let's take a look at some things that end up happening here. So Zeus dies level 1, and so Morgan gets to start lane with a cloth armor. So he's a lot tankier than he should be. And then Poby also makes a lot of lane blunders. He does things that don't make any sense inside of his lane. Okay, why did Poby move left side? That ward isn't safe. Also, look at this incoming wave. Look at wave 3. Look at wave 3. Look at how far away it is. Why did Poby not get these look at Karis's HP. Okay? Why did Poby not insta-shove these 2 minions? Karis can't tank this. These are too many spellcasters. Why did Poby, when the 3rd wave is leaving, why did Poby not crash wave 2? What is he doing? But then, why does he suddenly go and hover left side? What's his play when wave 3 gets here? What is he going to do? I don't know. He's not level 3. He's not going to get level 3 quickly either. He's going to take more damage from Azir. This is amazing for Azir. He's playing against Conqueror Azir, who can't even stack his rune in laning phase, against Phase Rush Jace, and Poby just decides to lose 1,000,000 HP, level 1. Okay. So this is the lane where Poby is like having a lot of bad stuff go on. Now Zeus misses some CS here, and then what was this? Not this. Sorry. Poby's just really far behind in mid. Comes back. Owner's here. Bramble Smash. QE. Doesn't actually have enough damage to kill the minions. A little bit sad. And then, you fast forward. Now, I think he just smorks at one point for no reason, right? Now, right here, Poby's actually, he's in an okay state. He's in an okay state. Now, obviously, so in a spot like this, you want to shove spellcasters first and then melees last. And the reason that I always tell people about this, if people remember my old coaching sessions and stuff like that, he should just spend his auto attacks on the melees. That's fine. Shock Blast should not be necessarily into the melees. The reason that you do it like this is because the melees are in your retreat path. So whenever you're pushing a wave and you know that you have to run away when you're recalling, always try to hit the spellcasters first and then the melees because it's within your retreat path. Otherwise, you can end up sometimes having to give up minions, and then things are really bad. Anyways, that was fine. We fast forward again, and then right here, look at Zeus. Look at Zeus. Look at Zeus. Look at Zeus. Okay, so owner is actually taking a long way around top. I don't know why. It shouldn't matter. Like, look at Morgan. If I'm owner, I don't know what owner's looking at. You see this? Do you guys see where Morgan just clicked? He just clicked right here. You can tell because K'Sante's face. Morgan just clicked somewhere on this line. Somewhere on this line, Morgan just clicked. If you're owner, then you can just move up. This ward already sees you. So it doesn't matter if you're sweepering, the ward already saw you. Either he sees you when he's getting out or he's not getting out. You don't need confirmation that there's a ward inside of the brush. Now this R by Zeus, it also could have been better. You can see that it overlaps actually here, so it could have been a little bit further down. And then Morgan also has R here. Okay. And then, you know, gets out. Bramble Smash into the minions. Okay. Now, now, one of the things that you'll also realize is that there's no real way to kill Cassante here. They never have enough damage when you consider that he has flash because owner's not 6. Okay. So they get Zeus out of that situation. All right. So we've already seen a lot of laning phase mistakes from T1. That's fine. I also believe that there was some really big laning phase mistake with Poby. I think it was, I don't remember if it was, no, I think it's game. No, it is this game, but we'd have to go through the entire Jace laning phase, in the camera pans in order to get it. Okay, Zeus. Okay, Zeus, fine spot. All right, clears the wave. T1 are really, really ahead right now in this game. Very, 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 very comfortable. Very comfortable. Very, very comfortable in the game. Okay. He gets the wave. Okay. So right here, second Drake's about to come up, right, guys? Second Drake's coming up. 17 seconds. Right? 17 seconds until Dragon comes up. Okay. So let's take a look at bot lane. Do you guys see Blitzcrank and Kai'Sa underneath the turrets? Okay. Do you see Jace? You see Jace, right? Okay, underneath the turret. Okay. You see Zeus up in top lane. Okay. So there's no jungle camps up on the right-hand side, right? What's owner doing? What? What is owner doing? He has jungle camps up left side, and then it's an ocean dragon, and there's 0 chance to contest. But you also drafted in a way that you're not trying to contest. So why are you even? Why are you staring at them? Now right here, what the hell goes on in top lane? So we can't even see. This is actually an uncharacteristic blunder by LCK Observer. Why is Zeus 1v1ing Morgan? Why is he in a position to 1v1 Morgan? The wave is coming into Zeus. So, why is he in a position to 1v1 Morgan? And then, in addition to this, after Dragon's been taken, okay, so it says Dragon's been taken, right here, right? Maokai's up. Look at owner. He goes to Raptors. And then he doesn't go up to golems. So if Zeus is trying to clear the wave because he thinks that he can be dove, why is owner not pathing to golems to then cover a dive? If that's why this fight transpires. Now, obviously, they see that Maokai's not there. And then you guys might notice this ping. This ping might be signifying that Maokai could be there. I'm not sure. Without comms. But Zeus now dies. Okay. Oh, shit. Sorry, guys. Okay, so now this game state, they're down 3k gold, and they're down the Cloud Drake. This game, I would still say, is pretty winnable. They're down 3k gold. I think as long as Kai'Sa still goes Ludens, I think the game is still pretty winnable. Now, if there was gonna, I mean, oh, sorry. Now, if like, the other thing is that the dragon not being like Mountain or Hextech is also really good news for T1 because it means that they can just afford to give it. This was also really weird by Keria. It's very, very slow on the decisions. And then right here, okay, T1, they should just be thinking to themselves, okay, Kai'Sa just has to get to 3. Now, also, one of the things they might indirectly have noticed about this game is that Dragon Soul is coming online before Kai'Sa gets to 3 items. You guys have heard me talk about one of Kai'Sa's weaknesses for the last few weeks. In theory, if you're drafting correctly, this is not a, I would not say this is a dragon stacking composition per se, right? I think a lot of stuff that transpires here is because of Umti's early game jungling, Boner making a really, really bad mistake, and then also the interaction between Karis and Poby in the early laning phases. I think that all of those things are pretty problematic, as well as like Morgan getting first blood on Zeus extremely early on, and then Gangplank falling behind, right? Falling behind more than he should have. But realistically, Dragon stacking against Kai'Sa is something that she has a lot of difficulty interacting with because she does not become Thanos until 3 items. So even in a game state like this, game should still be pretty comfortable. But then Gumayusi shows that he's going to build Guinsus. Now, likewise, also, Karis is griefing because he's building Crown of the Shattered Queen against Gangplank R, Saplings, Jace QE, and Kai'Sa W. So really, really cool. And then also Static Shiv even. So Karis also griefing his build, trying to help out T1. And then this obviously, this is a pretty unfortunate situation. Now, Gangplank does have R, but T1 are just really, really slow to react to this. In theory, this is kind of like a 50-50, and they should also take a lot of damage. The problem is that T1 react to this Baron so late. They react to the Baron super late, and the setup is just not there, and Jace is just feeling really, really bad. Now, this Baron is also transpiring because of things that happened moments prior. So the Baron ends up being captured, and then T1... they try to counter push and stuff, but I mean, it's kind of a doomed game. Now they're down 4K. Cloud Soul is still not like the end of the world, but the game is pretty doomed. And then we know there's no Ludens, so there's not going to be any bailout that's going to be coming. And then also, I mean, you could even, you know, I mean, Poby does have Mirror Mana. But yeah, I mean, the Baron stuff at that point, the game is kind of over. Okay, so these are the games, and these are the drafts and stuff. Now let's get back to this thing here.
되게 아쉽게 생각하고 있습니다.
저도
I talked for so long, my speaker turned
아쉽게
off.
진 것 같고 3세트 때 좀 제가 할 게 많은 좀 해볼 저도
져서 되게 아쉽게 생각하고 있습니다.
저도 똑같이 좀 아쉽게 진 것 같고 3세트 때 좀 제가 할 게 많은 좀 해볼 만한 게 많은 그런 픽이었다고 생각했는데 잘 수행하지 못한 것 같아서 아쉬운 것 같습니다.
일단 스카너를 이제 1세트에서 상대해보고 조금 그 부분이 저희 생각이랑 많이 다른 부분이 있어서 그런 부분을 이제 스카너한테 한 판 지고 나서 많이 좀 의식했던 것 같고 3세트 같은 경우에는 초반에 엄티 선수가 되게 영리하게 잘 했더라고요. 2레벨에 최근에는 원래
Wait, I'm sorry. Are we saying that Umti's pathing? Wait, I'm sorry. Did he just say Umti's pathing is why Poby died at level 2? Wait, surely no, right? Surely no. Why did I just type LEC? Surely he didn't. Surely he didn't just make the claim that Umti's pathing is why Poby died at level 2, even though I just explained why Poby died is because of his own fault with the lane state. Surely we're not complimenting the enemy jungler for making an atrocious decision that worked out because our mid laner can't lane. Surely that's not what's going on, right? Oh, thank God, we have Poby's lane. Actually, hold on. Okay, auto, yep. Okay, auto, trade. Why did he left click? He actually, okay, he misses QE. Okay, so I want you guys to watch Poby's mistakes here when he gets 2. Okay, auto, yep. Staying at the outer ring. This is fine. Okay, auto. He clicked here instead of just at Karis. I don't know if you guys noticed this. He clicked here instead of just at Karis. Okay? Does not make any sense. Move to Karis. Auto. Misses an auto and also misses QE. Okay. So now Umti. Okay. So, okay, look at the proximity of wave 3. Look at the proximity of wave 3. Karis is already getting blown on his HP. Okay? Poby still has a corrupting potion. Now, obviously, if the QE hits, Karis is like this. Right? In terms of HP. So, if you're Poby, what is the best thing that you can do right now? Well, your Maokai is now going to path into left-hand side jungle. You have Gangplank in top lane. Nothing's happening here. Okay. So, Karis is really low on HP. And because of this, and you have C-Pot and your Jace with QE, etc., it'd be really bad if he has to walk into you. So, Poby, why do you not insta-shove this wave into turret and then pull 3, 4, 5 into you? What's going on here? What am I missing? Okay, great. So I'm glad that I can demonstrate that Poby's messing up.
네, 엄티 선수가 되게
Very smart about his jungle pathing. Yeah, so Umti actually makes the decision to go for the gank on mid prior to Poby actually deciding that he's just not going to play his lane right. So Umti is actually griefing, but oh man, I can't focus.
영리하게 잘 했더라고요. 2레벨에 이제 그렇게 돼서 제이스가 풀이 빠지게 돼서 좀 경기가 안 좋게 흘러가지 않았나 생각하고
Yeah,
있습니다.
the Jace tempo swing is really big. Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
일단 스프링 때 그렇게 잘했던 거는 별로 지금 와서는 그렇게 큰 것 같지는 않고 그냥 제가 느끼기에는 사실 성원이가 오기 전에도 저희 팀이 어느 정도 문제 같은 게 많이 있었던 것 같고
True.
그런 것들이 계속 쌓이면서 뭔가 각자의 실력들이 제대로 잘 안 나오고 있다고 생각을 합니다. 그래서 그렇게 되는 것 같습니다. 지금 나온 챔피언들이 전체적으로 좀 저희가 원래 예전부터 잘했던 그런 픽들과는 좀 거리가 먼 좀 뭔가 다들 든든하고 결국에 후반 한타 지향 이런 느낌의 픽들이 많아서인 이유도 있는 것 같습니다.
This is also something that is just really bizarre, and I would also even say that it's untrue. I know that there's a Reddit comment that actually went over this that showed that it doesn't make any sense. Aphelios is in the meta right now. Aphelios was literally Gumayushi's crutch. He was actually said to have the best Aphelios in Korea at one point. So that's just kind of weird. Kaisa is also another champion that he really, really, really likes. Kaisa is the other premier AD carry, so that doesn't make any sense. Zeus is still playing Gnar and Renekton and Jace and all these other champions, which he's played for years on end. That doesn't make any sense. Mid lane, everyone and their mother has played Azir forever. If you want to make the argument about Tristana being a thing, okay. If you want to talk about LeBlanc being weird, Faker is LeBlanc. So that's like also really strange. Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. Also, the jungle meta picks haven't really changed in about a year and a half. So that's really cool. I mean, Zeus's line here is just totally cope. I don't know. I don't know what he's saying. It's just not true. It's like visibly not true. You just go to match history and you see it's not true. It's not true. The other thing that I don't like that he's saying is he's saying the meta right now is if it has to be defined this way. The reality is that the meta right now is actually very far from the best champions in the game. It's just that because of social conformity and social biases, the meta is the way that it is because people only want to play what everyone else is playing, because if you deviate from that, then you're going to think that, you're doing something wrong or, whatnot. I don't even know.